Hey Sugar Geeks, welcome back to the Sugar Geek Show. I'm Liz Merrick. Today we are making a super duper easy chocolate cake. I'm serious. No special ingredients, no special mixing. We're just gonna put them in the bowl, mix it together, and magically it's gonna become a delicious, fudgy, moist cake like, oh my God. Look at this, I mean, come on. This is an awesome cake to make with the kiddos because they can help put all the ingredients in the bowl and you don't have to stress about it. So let's go ahead and get our ingredients together and let's get started. So first we're going to place our flour and our sugar and our cocoa powder, baking soda, and salt all in a large heat-proof bowl. I'm doing this in the bowl of my stand mixer, but you could definitely just do this in a regular bowl with a hand mixer if you want to. We're using natural unsweetened cocoa powder, not Dutched. This is the most common type of cocoa powder, and because it's natural, that means it's slightly acidic, which is why we're using baking soda and buttermilk in this recipe. Right now, the cocoa powder and the baking soda are sitting happily in the bowl together and aren't going to have much of a reaction. Once we add in the buttermilk though, things are going to start fizzing and reacting, so it's important to have all of your ingredients measured and ready to go before you start mixing, so you can get your cakes in the oven right away. And then we're going to just add in the milk, oil, eggs, and vanilla, and then we're going to mix this for 2 minutes on medium. If you undermix your cake, it can collapse in the oven before it's finished baking. If you overmix, you'll activate too much of the gluten in the recipe and you'll end up with a cake that tastes much more like cornbread than actual cake. It might even have some holes running through it. Once you're done mixing, add in your hot coffee. Don't worry, this isn't going to make your cake taste like coffee. The coffee just intensifies the flavor of the chocolate. If you don't want to use coffee, you can use hot water. Now be careful when you start this back up so that it doesn't splash you. I'm just going to go real slow. I'm going to give the bowl a scrape. We're just going to mix this until it's just combined. And you can see it's very watery, and that is totally normal. All right, I've got my two 8-inch pans here that I'm going to prepare with some like cake goop, homemade pan release. Just a nice even layer. If you want to have 3 layers of cake, you can multiply this recipe by 1.5 times, and then you'll have a 3rd layer of cake. All right, I'm going to just pour these into my 2 pans, just divide them evenly. Even though this batter is like really watery, it actually rises quite a bit. And now we're going to bake these in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes. We're going to carefully flip our cakes onto a wire rack and then chill them in the freezer for about 10 minutes. While our cakes are chilling, we're going to make our yummy chocolate fudge frosting. First, we need to make our ganache. Go ahead and microwave your cream for about 1 minute until it's nice and steamy. And then I microwave my chocolate for about 30 seconds to 1 minute, depending on how strong your microwave is. Make sure you don't burn it. Then pour your warm cream over your chocolate, making sure all of your chocolate chips are covered, and let that sit for about 5 minutes. Now we're going to stir it up until it's nice and creamy. If there's a few lumps in there, you can go ahead and microwave everything for another 30 seconds. Now we're going to let our ganache cool down while we measure out our other ingredients. My trick for getting the ganache to cool faster is to transfer it to another bowl. So for the rest of our frosting, we're going to cream our butter and then sift in the powdered sugar and the cocoa powder. I just use my hand for sifting, so I try not to make a big mess, but I make a mess anyways. When you first start mixing, it will look kind of crumbly at first, but just keep going. Now we're going to add our milk a tablespoon at a time to make it nice and smooth. Then vanilla, then salt, and blend until it's nice and fluffy. Don't forget to scrape the bowl. Okay, our buttercream's nice and fluffy, so let's go ahead and fold in our cooled ganache. As you can see, this frosting is very soft, very creamy, and very decadent. This makes a delicious frosting for your cake, for frosting on top of cupcakes. If you need it to be firmer, you can stick it in the fridge for about 20 minutes. And then we can chop up some of our favorite candies and nuts to be our decorations for the cake. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and start decorating our cake. But first, we gotta fill it with frosting. I'm gonna trim off the dome from our cake so it's nice and level, and then we can start filling it with the frosting. So I'm gonna frost my cake directly on this kind of rustic platter that I have here, but you could frost it on a plate or a cake pedestal, whatever you need. And I've just placed it on top of a turntable with a little non-skid pad to kind of keep it from flying off there. Nice healthy scoop of buttercream for the center. I have decided not to tort my cakes, slicing them through horizontally. But if you wanted more frosting to cake ratio, you definitely could. And just because I love hazelnuts, I'm gonna put some toasted hazelnuts right on top of there, because why not? Obviously, if you're allergic to nuts or if you don't like them, you can leave these out or replace it with some other type of candy. Okay, put the top layer on, and I'm gonna flip my layer over. Oh yeah. Add some more buttercream, and I'm just gonna put a very thin coat all over the cake. This is called the crumb coat. Well, this frosting is like super creamy and smooth. It's definitely softer than my typical frostings, but it's gonna be so good. Okay, I'm gonna place this into the freezer for about 10 or 15 minutes just to firm that frosting up, and then we'll put our final coat on. Okay, our buttercream is nice and chilled, so I could go ahead and put on the final layer. I'm not gonna worry too much about the top, but I'm gonna use my bench scraper to get the sides nice and smooth. When you're doing any sort of like drip cake like this, it is nice to work on a chilled cake because it's gonna keep your drip from running all the way down the edge of your cake. Just using my offset spatula to just smooth off those top edges. Okay, so now we're ready to do our ganache drip. Our ganache has cooled down quite a bit and is pretty thick. So I'm going to microwave this for maybe 10 seconds to just get it liquidy again. I'm gonna go ahead and pour my ganache into a piping bag. I like to put my piping bag inside a cup so that it doesn't fall over. Just twist that, and I'm gonna trim the tip off. So before we start dripping, we gotta do a test to make sure that our ganache is not too warm. So we're gonna take our little drip and just come right in the front and come over and give it a little squeeze. And if it runs all the way down to the board, the ganache is too warm or your cake is too warm. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now we can proceed to dripping. So I'm gonna come over and not squeeze, and then give it a squeeze, come over. And that creates a nice alternating drip. There's not a lot of ways to mess this up. It's gonna look delicious and amazing. And then I'm gonna put some on the top. I'm just gonna squeeze the excess right on top. Then just use a little offset spatula to just smooth out any holes. Ooh yeah, ooh yeah. So now I'm gonna put a border of buttercream around the top of the cake to be a sort of base for all of our delicious candies. I'm just gonna do a little rotating loop. This is actually called a rope border. Oh, look at that, that's so pretty. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now for the fun part. We're gonna take all of our delicious candies and nuts and toppings and just kind of put them all over. You can use whatever you want. My favorite is the Snickers, so nobody take any of those, that's mine. Okay, so a little bit of strategy when it comes to, making this look really nice is we're gonna go for symmetrical. Some people like put a bunch like on one side and kind of have them coming down the other side, but we're just gonna be sort of keeping everything even around the top. I'm gonna start off with my hazelnut macarons. I think a wise decision would be to start with sort of like your bigger pieces and then fill in the holes with any smaller pieces. I'm using different types of candies that kind of have different shades and textures. It just looks more visually interesting. Ooh. I love how the hazelnuts look because not only does that visually kind of say there's hazelnuts in this cake, but it also adds a little bit of lightness to all of the dark. I think that's basically perfection right there. Okay. All right, yeah. Oh, so good. That's it, guys. That's how you make a delicious, moist, super easy chocolate cake. Hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next week. New videos every Tuesday.